lob, and the 95-year-old opponent goes, "Oh, to be 90 again, I would have had that easy," and he's mocking the other guy in the 90 and overs. So it's a great game. So we need to keep people in the game. So I think that's part of our topic. I think 10 and under campaign is terrific. We're getting a lot of people in the game. But what happens is 70% split. They leave the game because crazy tennis parents, or it's too difficult. They're not finding the solutions. So it's our job to give them new solutions.
Here's what I see: a big breakdown in the playfulness that from 10 and under tennis, and then the transferring into competitive junior tennis, and there is playfulness almost goes away. And I feel like as a coach, I feel really compelled to create an atmosphere on the court, intense fun, fun that's intense and serious, but keeping the playfulness and teaching the players to really play the game, like you said, earlier.
Yeah.
Right.
And so, I have two comments about that. That's such a great point. One, in my area, we're really blessed to have a tournament series that runs in the fall and the spring, where there's coaching allowed.
Good.
So any of my kids who are now, they're low intermediates and they're going to start competing for the first time, I take them to these tournaments because I can sort of hold their hand. And then we've got, 5 or 6 kids playing in the tournament. So they're interacting with each other, and they're watching each other, and I'm helping coach them through their difficult moments. And then we start to look at the other people too, and we go, look, do you see how we're having fun, and over there those people aren't really having fun, but hey, aren't you glad we're here together? I spent a lot of time inoculating my kids against the robots from another planet that were sent to destroy them. Because when they go to the tournament, it's going to be few and far between the friendly people that they're going to meet. So we do this initial tournament phase because that's going to be fun because I'm there with them. And then when they're ready to strike out into a different format of playing through the official organizing people, it's not going to be as friendly. So they really have to have their internal fun thing dial set to the right number.
Right.
So what do you want me to follow up on?
I want you to elaborate, because you made a statement there and you talked about holding the players' hands and then coaching them. And some may watch that and go, well, we don't need to hold the kids' hands. We need to let them figure it out on themselves. But I heard this recent talk by Jim Lair, and he talked about kindness in coaching. And don't confuse me being kind to you by helping you through this as a sign of weakness. I'm not a weak person because I'm being kind, but kind of elaborate on what that coaching looks like for you in that environment.
Frank was saying, USTA has data that shows that most kids quit after their first tournament. So that is an incredibly vulnerable time for a kid. Now, you go and you send that kid out alone and they play someone who cheats them, then you're subjecting that kid to possibly quitting the game. But if you go with that kid to the tournament and you provide that mental and emotional support, they still have to play their own match. But then because it allows coaching, you notice that your player is sort of flaming out there in the match. They're having a meltdown, which you sort of expect. And then you can go to them on changeover and you can say, hey, look, calm down, just play the game, right? You bring them back to what's important.
What you guys are talking about is there's a whole new movement in psychology, and it's positive psychology. So psychology used to be, how can we help you handle all your problems, what's negative in the world? But you guys are talking about the positive approach to psychology. You're actually helping them understand what's good in the world, what's good about their own game, what's good about the situation, how to bring out the best in people, as opposed to only worrying about what's going wrong. And so, but it's new. Most coaches don't do that. They're more into the negative side of things. But
what do you think has happened to cause that more negative response? Is that something that maybe is just keeps going and predicated, or is it what's the or do you see there's a shift coming with
There's a
coaches?
shift. I think there's a shift.
Okay.
I think that the negative type of drill sergeant coaching, do it because I said so, which came from the 1950s, it's dying out because kids are just too smart now. And they're walking around with a computer in their pocket on their cell phone. They can figure things out instantaneously. And then this is the whole realm of emotional intelligence or emotional aptitude, where that's becoming very popular now. And in sports, for the first time ever, we're really teaching the emotional skill sets, how to handle stress, nervousness, how to deal with cheaters, how to control your focus, which, by the way, it's very different between the mental sides, because it's very confusing to a lot of players and coaches and even parents that they say, my kid's not mentally tough. She chokes under pressure. That's not mental toughness. That's emotional toughness. The mental components of the game is the athlete's ability to understand the correct X's and O's of strategies and tactics, to play the right shot the moment demands.
Yeah.
Mental.
And and here's my issue with that is that people are living in this delusional bubble where they think that somehow they can inoculate their kid from ever choking, and that that's somehow a sign of weakness. And yet every athlete, every great athlete has choked.
Yeah.
Okay, up in my area, the San Francisco 49ers, the greatest play in 49ers history was Dwight Clark making the catch. And why is it called the catch? Because it was an awful throw by Joe Montana, right? And so Dwight Clark had to go to full extension, and people forget that Joe Montana had one of his worst days as a quarterback that day. He threw 4 interceptions, and he threw for his lowest yardage, and Dwight Clark saved the day, but Joe Montana was choking.
Yeah.
Michael Jordan taught his famous ad where he says, 58 times I was asked to make the game-winning shot, 29 times I missed.
That's a good point for parents out there with kids, is that the children that are winning the trophies, if your kid's not winning all the trophies, the kid that is winning all the trophies have probably lost 100 matches more than your child ever has. It's not that they're winning more, they actually lost more, because that's how they learn from learn from your losses a little bit more.
Right, because I tell my players all the time, you have to learn to lose before you can ever learn to win.
Yeah, right on.
And you have to learn to lose graciously so that you can win graciously. You can show your opponent respect when you lose to them or when you beat them. And you're really playing yourself. You're not. Really...
I do something ridiculous with the kids. I go ridiculous with them. I say, you know what, kids? Sometimes losing is winning, because when you lose, then you get to go home.
True.
Because sometimes those kids, they're not ready to be at a tournament the whole weekend. They're not really there yet. They're not ready. I mean, hey, look, think about, winning means that you commit more time to it. That's awesome. But sometimes losing creates an opportunity for you to go and reflect on what you need to do so that you can win next time.
Yeah.
So there's something positive about everything. Remember you were mentioning that?
So on a roll with it is finding the value in everything.
Yeah.
And that if you're not finding some value in everything, then I don't think you're looking hard enough. You're not looking to find it. But I want to drill down a little bit, because I see that this can be a major issue, especially, and I've dealt with this personally, is the difference between just being a drill sergeant coach, and then being just like this touchy-feely coach, in the 9th place trophies and all that stuff. I mean, I want to be a balanced coach.
Yeah.
Like I want to, or is it possible to really be firm and be kind, and how much really like self-awareness as a coach do you really need to pursue, and then how do you kind of create for yourself where you can be a good balance of both? Because I see a lot of drill sergeants, and then I see a lot of the extremes, but I do see some coaches, and I feel like I'm becoming more of that, is this blend.
Yeah.
So do you have some stories about times that you kind of struck that balance with some players?
Um,
Or you're over the top one or the other?
I think I've been over the top a little bit. I think the balance for me is understanding that we're all wired differently. Even as coaches, we all have our unique personality profiles, and so we're wired to be a certain way, but also we're nurtured that way. Whether it's our teachers or our past coaches or our parents, they really play a big role in how we coach. And sometimes we have to stand up and say, "I'm not going to be like them. I'm going to really work super hard." And for me in my background, I had a lot of nurturing to be extremely, extremely negative. But once I met Vic Braden at the age of 23, it changed my whole life. Because then I understood that it's not about saying, don't do this, don't do that, don't do this. And it was his initial approach, back in the day to be very positive. And we can be very positive if we have sports science to back it up. I'm a firm believer that we want to give the athletes all the rationale. We have to give them the sports science. They have to understand why we're saying what we're saying, as opposed to do it because I said so. If you don't do it right, you're going to take 10 laps. Now, to me, a coach that does that is a coach that doesn't know how to coach.
Well, I think if you can take a really easy path as a coach,
Yeah,
and it doesn't take a lot of coaching experience to actually say, hey kid, run 5 up and downs.
Yeah,
because
if you can't do it, go
because
run.
you're double faulting 20 times. I mean, it doesn't take a lot of energy to do that. And
Yeah.
so, but going back to what you just said, because I just thought technology and how technology, and like you said, kids having computers in their hands, and we as adults, I mean, it's the youthification of the world is.
Right.
I mean, I feel 15 years younger because I'm using the technology.
It's great, right?
It's
Yeah.
awesome, isn't it? But kind of talk about or give me your idea, because I've sort of wrestled with this. I know Bill, you have some opinions about this for sure.
Well, I always have opinions.
Of course you do, but that's good. That's a good thing. So this idea of kids are just smarter, or they're more intuitive to what's going on because they can access so much information at the touch of a.
Can I go first on that?
Yeah,
Go for
man.
it, Bill. Come on, Bill.
Good dude.
I think there's a myth to that. I think that the technology has actually made kids sort of disconnected from themselves and from other kids, because they don't talk as well as they used to.
Yeah.
They don't talk to each other
Like
as well.
verbally.
So I'm going to text you right now.
I see.
I'll text you even though we're standing right here.
But Styrling's talking about information
Okay,
exchange,
but
you're talking about emotional capacity, right?
So there's a
two
there's a
different-
give and a take.
There-
I mean,
yeah,
so
that's a good
they've
point,
got
yes.
more info,
Yin and yang.
but do they
But they're not
have
expressive.
ability to integrate, ability to engage? Okay, so that's where I do my thing, and I'll try to be really quick about this. Where I get a kid on the court and we go through. All right, you got parents, coaches, and players. Hey kid, who's the decision maker? And they never know that it's them. They think it's me. They think it's their parent. Mm-hmm. And when I say no, those are both wrong, and they say, I'm the decision maker. I mean, you should see they get this look of wonderment on their face. And I go, I ask them, okay, so who's the expert consultant? And they go, you. And I'm like, okay, that was quick, right? And then I ask them, who gives final approval? And some of them are like stuck on stun for a second, and they think, and they go, me? No. You? No. And they go, my parents? Yes, your parents. Because if they don't like what's happening here, it's over. But here's where I'm about to get fired. Because we go to the fence, and I share with the parents after the first lesson, here's what we came up with. Your son or daughter is the decision maker. And a lot of parents go, yeah, of course. And some go, as if their kid might not be trustworthy with that responsibility. And others scowl because they're the decision maker, and they were going to hold on to that decision-making role. And then we say, and then your child decided that I'm the expert consultant. And some parents go, wow, that's great, that's perfect, that's what we are paying for. Some go, is my little decision maker making a good decision there? We don't know. Jury's out, right? And then some parents scowl double because they want all three roles for themselves. They want to be the decision maker, the expert consultant, and give final approval, and they're just simply consumers of my coaching, and there's no integration that they're looking for at all, and I won't see them again. And I'm glad. Goodbye.
How have you dealt with something like that? Have you ever?
Well,
I'm sure you've experienced things like that.
From the coaching world, we all spot those parents because after a tournament, they'll call and they'll either say, this is the parent talking, and they'll say, we won, or they'll say, she didn't listen to me, she lost. And that's pretty powerful when I hear that from a parent, because the parent wants all the credit if the kid wins, and if the kid loses, they didn't listen to me. But
and what would you say? Like, say a parent like that is watching this video. This video falls into their hands.
Well, I would have
and
them.
What would you say? What would be your words of encouragement to that parent?
I would say it would be in your best interest to go YouTube helicopter parents and look at all the symptoms of being a helicopter parent, because you most likely are one. And you're stunting the exact growth that you seek for your child by over controlling everything. And that's another little tightrope that a parent has to walk, right? They don't want to see their child fail, but they actually have to let them fail with their own terms, as long as they don't get hurt, right? But they have to let them fail, because that's how they're going to grow. By solving everything, look, parents, if you solve everything for your child, or attempt to solve it, if you do solve it, the problem, the child does not grow. If you don't solve it, the child does not grow, and they blame you for the bad result. Now, if you let them solve it, they might actually not solve the problem either, but they're going to grow and learn from it. If they do solve it, now they're more confident individuals anyway, and you're getting what you pay for. So it's in your best interest to let them solve their own problems.
And that's where the decision maker thing comes in.
Yes,
because they're only going to learn to become good decision makers by making bad decisions and seeing the consequences of those bad decisions and moving forward. Let me give you an example.
Well, you pointed
Anya.
out.
Anya.
Wait, you point out that when you ask them the question, who's the decision maker, you actually empower the player in taking on that responsibility. Because a lot of players, they are never asked the question, or who's the decision maker? So they never get that transfer of power to them. They don't take on that responsibility. And to me, like, it's gotta start there.
Yeah.
And then people, if we understand our roles,
that's good.
Man, you know what? It hurts to hear the truth sometimes.
Yeah. Well, how does a parent transfer? So I'll give you one tip you guys can try back at home. Is do what I call the co-pilot game. And the whole idea is, whenever you go to tennis tournaments, you have to explain to your junior player, if you're a parent of a junior playing tournaments, that the junior player has to be the co-pilot. Okay, so they have to organize their gear, their water bottles, such. They have to find the GPS location to the site. They've got to actually get to the site. Now, if you're going international, if you're a top player, you got to have your junior player find the airport, find parking, find American Airlines, find the gate, find the seat on the plane. When they get off the plane, the junior has to find baggage claim carousel. They have to find the rental car. Now, you're only going to be alongside of them, but they're in charge. You're the co-pilot. They're the pilot. Now, the more they get used to solving every problem, guess who's going to be able to solve problems on the tennis court? Your child. But if you're solving all the problems for them, they have no experience even solving problems. So when they get into a problem on the court, they're going to look at you and not know what to do.
I have two great examples of this.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, if a kid comes to the tournament and the mom's got the bag,
man.
I say to that kid, I'm like, are you a player? If you're a player, get that bag from your mom right now. What is she, your Sherpa? Right? So get that bag. If you're a player, you carry your bag, young man. I'm like, Mom, you're on vacation. Right? Isn't your mom on vacation? You're the player. So let me give you two quick examples. Let me give you two quick examples. We have a good friend whose daughter is a rising player, and she's coming up the WTA tour, and she just recently traveled Europe alone and had to solve major train schedule issues
Good for
in
her.
Europe.
Yes.
And
Powerful.
and
Yeah.
Dad was available via phone to like help problem solve, but the daughter had to figure it all out. And it was, and so there was actually a situation where she rolls up on her tournament match just like 30 minutes before it's going to start, and she's got to go, and then she wins. But that kind of adversity, and I have a player I like to brag about a lot. Her name's Anya, and she's really a smart cookie, and she's not incredibly big or fast or strong or any of that, but she's smart. She's a great decision maker, and so we have this time of I ask her, what is she trying to do? What does she want to do? And so she's playing high school tennis now, and she comes to me and she says, hey, I'm really having a hard time with keeping my backhand deep enough because I'm setting it up short and girls are taking advantage of it. So she's self-aware. She sees the result of a certain shot. So we set about working on this backhand to try. If we're doing a block drill where it's just hitting that shot, because we'll differentiate after she shows some mastery of this deep backhand shot. But a funny thing happens. She hits the target area, and then she misses the shot 21 feet short to the other side. And I'm like, wait, don't you? I thought we said we were hitting this. Why is it so far off from the target? And so then, we go back and she hits the target area again, and the next shot's 25 feet short and over there on the other side. And I went, stop. And I said, hey, let's come to the net and talk about this. What's happening here? What are you trying to do?
So what's the cause of that?
What's the cause of that? What's happening here? Well, so we talked about it for a little bit, and here's what we came up with. She had been trained so well by me to hit shot combinations that she was automatically playing that combination, which is a great thing. So I could hammer on her and say, hey, you're failing in this drill, or I can affirm that she has built in this high level of training that has given her a skill that can help her win matches.
Yep.
But
That's a good point of exception,
it's her, but see, it's athlete centered because it's all about her and what's she doing, not what do I want her to do.
I don't think coaches should say always and never, because there's exceptions to every rule, right? So even though you trained her additionally to run a pattern, now on this particular day, you're saying what? You're saying, we're not doing that pattern right now. We're hitting to the same location with 6, 7 balls in a row. Exception to the rule. But she has to spot the exception and then be focused and diligent enough to stay on the new task. And which is a cool thing, because I experience almost the opposite. I experience kids, we give them the rule, like, just serve to the backhand 75%. And they cannot stick to the rule. They're like, yeah, but what if? And you're like, if you're winning 2 out of 3, if you're winning 66%, you can tell the other guy, dude, I'm serving to your backhand every time. And the kid, if he doesn't have a backhand, he can't fix it because he doesn't have a backhand. It's too late to fix it. So just keep going to the backhand. But they're so exception-oriented, a lot of kids now.
No, it's so true. Like
they want to prove you wrong.
I just had a match recently where a young lady, and she's just trying to drill the ball through a retriever.
Yeah, right.
And I go to her on the change. I'm like, darling, you know how to beat a retriever. She's, well, I just play my game. I go, yeah, you play your game, but this way today, because you're playing a retriever. So, yeah, in your game, you have the slice, you have the underspin, you have the drop shot, you have the deep drive. Yeah, it's time to like mix those up now, because that is what's going to, a retriever just runs, they just want to stay side to side.
Yeah.
And you know what she did? It's like she checked, it's like she didn't hear me, or something was going on.
Yeah.
And she just kept trying to hit through, and she got beat really bad.
But that's a good example of primary strokes only, right?
Right. So then I left her to her own. I gave her a day. We gave him a day off.
Yeah.
Come back the next day, play a totally different. She was a completely different player.
Well,
she was mixing it up. And she figured it out. So after the match, I walked up to her and I said, you know what? What I really love about you as a player is that something happens to you, and then you go off and you reflect on it.
Yeah.
And you
Good for
think
her.
about it, and then you come back and you make the adjustments. And she smiled, huge smile, and she goes,
Let's get up.
"Thanks, coach." She goes, "It's awesome."
Yeah, I have one like that.
So
and-
affirming that.
yeah,
Affirm it.
I have one like that. I had a kid, and he's in the ranks in the 60s, and he's playing a kid who's solidly in the top 20, and that's like night and day, right? So, but we have a great game plan because the other kids' ground strokes are like a machine. So we just go kitchen sink, right? You're gonna hit one ball high, one ball low, one ball fast, one ball slow. You're gonna hit heavy topspin, less topspin, flat, slice. Just take this kid out of his rhythm, right? So it's starting to work. My guy loses the first set, but the tactic is starting to work because the other guy's getting frustrated. He's starting to lose some timing. My guy goes up a break and wins the second set. But early in the third set, he decides to hit with this kid for 2 games.
Yeah.
And those games were over really fast.
Yeah.
Those games were over really fast. I mean, those 2 games combined, I think, were about 3 minutes altogether.
How often does he?
So we come up on the changeover. And I go, okay, so now do you see what happened right there? You went away from the game plan that's working, and then do you see how quickly he beat you? So I have a question. Do you want to win this match? So just go back to the game plan.
And it's a matter of confidence and trust, right?
Yeah.
And,
well,
but a lot of people don't rehearse their ABC game plans. So that idea of they don't want to stick with it because they don't quite trust it. Like this is not going to work, and they go back to their old power game.
I see that happening sometimes. I agree with what you're saying that happens commonly. But I think in this case it was, hey, I know I have this, but I just want to try to hit with this kid. I want to try. I want to see if I can hit with them. And the answer was clearly
so it's maturity
no,
level,
you
right?
cannot.
Okay, so I think that's what happened with my girl. I just told the story. Wait, but this goes with your story. I'm trying to enhance your story, dude.
My story has MSG in it already.
I just talk. So I say, hey, and she's like nodding, like yes, but then she goes back to trying to hit through. So it's like, I want to see if this works.
But it's common.
Stubbornness.
So do you think, Frank, that's more a maturity thing?
It's maturity, I think, for sure. But I was sitting with Sam Sumac, Victoria Azarenka's coach at the Australian Open, and she is doing the exact same thing that you guys are talking about. Okay. She's totally hitting to the other girl's forehand. The other girl's clocking it, but Victoria's still winning, and Sam's giving the look like, what are you doing? And Sam leans over to me and goes, she's trying to prove me wrong that she can still beat her even playing her strength.
So there's ego.
There's major ego.
And now we're going to finish my story.
Right.
So anyway, so my... Thanks, guys.
You're welcome.
No, and you know what? This is what I love because all we coaches, we really love to talk, don't we?
Well,
no, it's beautiful. Okay, All right, so my guy goes back to playing the game plan and pulls off this stunning upset, and it was pretty awesome. All right, now, here's a funny thing, though, about that. Do you remember when Boris Becker beat Yvonne Lendl from the baseline? Because nobody said Becker would have a chance of beating...
Was that his stubborn...
That was his stubborn thing. But you know what he did? He proved it. He kicked Lendl's butt and playing exclusively from the baseline. I think he beat him in straight sets.
Was it in the final? I'm curious, what did he do the next round?
Exactly.
Did he need a nap?
No, I do think that he won the final from the baseline against Lendl because he wanted to prove that he could, because nobody believed that he could.
Yeah.
But so there are always counter examples to this. But yeah, with juniors, they do tend to have this magical thinking. That they can make something work that's not going to work.
If you are a junior, though, I think here's a good tip to try to remember is practice in the manner you're expected to perform, which means practice your pattern play. Don't just rally back and forth, right? Practice in the manner you're expected to perform. But then you got to have the guts and the maturity to perform in the manner that you practiced. That's big.
Yes.
You got to be able to perform in the manner that you practiced. If you practice these beautiful patterns to beat a moonball pusher for 6 weeks, and now you go back into the match and you just try to overpower them, it's silly. You're not even using the new tools. So
Mm-hmm.
use the tools.
Yeah.
Kiddies.
Oh, that's so frustrating when you have a player who's got all the weapons and you've trained all the stuff, and then they go out and they just don't
Yeah.
do it.
Where do you feel like there's a because that I see that a lot. I see like and I think maybe it's something that just needs to be a player needs to experience that routine of because I'm really having my players practice in the manner in which they're expected to perform.
Yeah.
I mean, we're doing a lot of the 7 patterns: the serve, the +1, the return, the +1. What's your pattern of play when you start to get into that past that into that building phase, patterns of play, and I see them practicing it and they're getting it, and then they revert. Like that's what happened to my young lady. She reverted back to her old.
Yeah.
And then, but if you give a player time, can you give it? Because I feel like I'm giving players more time off, and I'm not addressing everything. But where's the balance in addressing it and then backing off and seeing if give them time to breathe and maybe just take them through a practice and show them, have them actually execute or attempt to execute what you want them to change instead of just explaining it to them.
Yeah.
Can you
Wait, after you answer, I want to get into like an on-court coaching example of that.
Okay.
So go.
All right.
Well, that's what I was asking.
I think it's customized to different people. Some people want the data right after the match. They want everything that they have to say so they can go home and they can kind of ponder it. Some people don't even want to talk at all for an hour or two. Sometimes though you're in a tournament situation and your player just maybe won a tough match, but maybe it shouldn't have been that tough, but he or she they have to play again in 1 hour. Well, you don't have a day to let them ponder. You only have 10 minutes. So it's kind of customized. But I think when it comes to actually practicing in the manner you're expected to perform or practicing patterns, athletes have to use the same analogy as a Hollywood script. We have to give them the patterns where they're writing it down. And that's where a Hollywood actress here, we're in LA today, but where the Hollywood actress has to actually read lines. But then the actresses, they for a whole week straight, if they're doing like one of these talk shows or sorry, cut that out, the talk show thing if you can remember. But if they're doing one of these sitcoms in LA, they have a whole week of dress rehearsals before they shoot the show. And we have to let our kids do dress rehearsals, which are just basically practice sets, practice matches, where they're only allowed to run those patterns. But I think a lot of times in coaching, especially in high school, we don't have enough time. I mean, we show them all the patterns, but we don't give them the dress rehearsal time before they shoot the show. In tennis, we give them the lines. We go, okay, go play the match. And it's just not quite comfortable. It's not built in yet, right?
Right.
So,
Yeah, and that plays into something else. So I'll address that first, and then I'll go to my on-court coaching thing, because Styrling and I both have done a lot of stuff on YouTube where we're trying to train high school coaches.
yeah.
And it's very systematized. So we start with developing your coaching philosophy, and we go blah blah blah, and everything follows a very logical progression. And it would be smart to go from beginning to end. But what do people do? They go straight to the stroke work stuff, and they go straight to the drills, and they watch all that. But they don't watch all what we think is the most important foundational stuff to how are you going to coach.
Yeah.
So one of those things is, you have to, I fully agree with you, you have to do that dress rehearsal stuff. But another thing that happens is, let's say it's a high school match and the coach is coaching and they go to the player and they say, hey, you know what, you need to make an adjustment here. But what people commonly think is that these human beings that we're dealing with are a computer and you just press a button and they just do it, right? So I've had lots of skepticism from lots of different people. I'm going to tell the parent, I'm like, hey, I'm going to tell your daughter to do this, right? So I go and I tell her on the changeover, and then the initial fits and spurts of the performance are pretty bad, and the parent's kind of looking at me like, well, that was wildly successful. And I'm like, you know what? Just wait. Because it takes longer than just 2 games to make that shift. And so what do? People then immediately go into panic mode. So if I told her on this changeover and I don't see immediate results right now, well, on the next changeover, I'm going to be a little more stern. I'm going to remember. or I'm going to change this. Oh, just change back. It doesn't matter. But no, you have to be patient, right? These are human beings we're dealing with. They have to process the stuff. So I give them something, early enough that there's still enough time for them to fudge for 2 games, and then they'll start changing, and then I can go back and I go, hey, look, it looks like it's starting to work.
Yeah.
Later. So we need to be a lot more patient with people and their ability to process it and put it into play.
I think starting that off with a question is valuable. You would say, I want to give you an adjustment. Is this in your wheelhouse? Do you feel comfortable doing this adjustment? Because sometimes we know from a tactical standpoint, drop shots are the best tactical play, maybe to beat a certain moonball pusher who's 20 feet behind the baseline. But the underlying issue is the guy or girl we're coaching doesn't have a drop shot. They've never practiced drop shots. They don't know how to hit one. They're not confident with it. So probably they're doomed if they don't own the tool.
Sure.
And so we have to make sure they're okay with the tool first, I think. I've made that mistake where I've asked them to do something that they don't own yet, and it doesn't work.
If they don't own it, then they're not going to believe in it.
Right.
And they really need to believe in it in that moment, especially when they're down.
Yeah.
Because belief is the thing
But long
that
term,
pulls you out of a bad situation or a desperate situation. Like you ask them to do something, but they don't believe
I don't believe it.
and you see it in their eyes, and you're like, but, like Bill said, be patient.
Yeah.
Maybe they can grow into that belief over the next game.
That's
or
the
two.
value. Like you actually know that the person's probably not going to win the match today, but if they execute 2 or 3 times properly, then later on as a learning tool, you can say, look, see how we had to bring that girl in to the net, and it worked on some of the times when you actually had the skills to do it, right? Which something we talk about, you have to execute. And can you really execute the plan? And as coaches, we give a good plan out, but if the person can't execute it for whatever reason.
And this is where the decision maker thing becomes so powerful. Because if you're playing a backhand that is not your backhand, it's a backhand that was taught to you, forced on you, shoved down your throat, are you gonna make that shot on match point that you need to make right now?
Yeah.
I think it's a lot less likely than if you learned the backhand that you decided was your best style, and you're playing the shot you own,
right on.
and you've decided to become an all-court player and have multi-skilled player because you know that gives you more chances to win more kinds of matches. Then you as the decision maker own that game, and then you can decisively do that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're just taking commands and orders on stuff you don't own, then the chances of you performing that are much lower.
So I think this would be a great question to maybe sum up, but you may have extra, so you just be patient. What do you see as important characteristics or qualities, or let me rephrase this. What do you think it takes to really be a great coach? Like, what do you feel like defines a great coach?
Yeah.
And what's the process by which a coach needs to go through to be that type of coach?
Yeah. No, good question. I think it's based on first starting off with whether you're an optimist or a pessimist. You have to be very optimistic if you're going to be a great coach, in my opinion. So you want that approach on life. You want that approach throughout all your training sessions, optimism. The other side is mindsets, right? You want to have a growth mindset. The coach is actually somebody that's not just teaching every day, but you're learning something new every day. So you're looking forward to getting on YouTube. You're looking forward to researching new topics. And a great way to look at it if you're a newer coach is look at the different components of the game. I use what I call the school methodology, where a kid goes to school and they don't just do math class all day, every day. They go to math, science, English, social studies maybe. And what's happening is you're developing a well-rounded human being. Well, in our job is coaching the game of tennis. We have to coach every component or every class. So you want to plan on being the type of educator that can teach every class. So the classes might be tennis-specific off-court cardio athleticism, a tennis-specific off-court in the gym to build upper body strength. You want to develop primary strokes, the athlete's secondary strokes, the athlete's tool belt of patterns, like top 7 patterns, or how to beat moonball pushers, how to beat hard hitting baseliners, those type of patterns. We want to be able to teach like the cause of errors, which is found through sets. And one thing that's interesting for me is if an athlete is going to win a 64 draw tournament, depending on buys or not, they have to win 5 or 6 matches. And we're talking honestly, they have to play at their peak performance level, pretty much, and they have to win 12 to 15 sets in a week. And how many of you out there honestly can say you play 15 sets a week? Most juniors I know play 1 or 2 sets a week. They go into tournaments, they lose first, second, or third round. They go, I don't know why I always lose. And I go, well, I do. So it's important. They've got to practice in the manner they're expected to perform. So if you're a coach, use the school methodology. Coach everything. Try not to fall into the old school trap of if you have perfect, fundamental, basic, primary strokes, you're going to be on the tour, because you're not. You're just going to be a really good-looking loser. So you got to have everything.
That was awesome. Yeah, that was really good.
That's kind of mean, but
No, it's but sometimes the truth
yeah,
is brutal.
You see those guys that in the warm-up, they look so good. They're like holding their.
To feel good is not important. It is to look good.
Yeah.
You look marvelous.
I think that comes with age. Getting older. I think wisdom comes with experience and age.
Yeah.
And when I look back on all my coaches as a football player, basketball player, tennis player, baseball player, the coaches that I respect, and I'm looking back and going, thank you in my mind, are the ones that told me the brutal truth. Yeah. Styrling, you're not going to be able to do this unless you get it in gear and really work on this, and this, and you better have that optimistic attitude on the field. You better not start, down self-talking yourself and beating you up, because that just gives that guy more ammunition to run you over.
Yeah. So, the attitude is contagious, isn't it? When you see it with these